Where does this come from? This idea that once we have discovered this beautiful cosmic self that we all are, why is that then that people say, oh, but if you want that, then that is the only thing you can work with. And don't think about your food, don't do any yoga asana, don't do any breath, don't do any mantra, don't do any chanting. The whole thing is about not trying anything, not thinking, about stopping, bringing the awareness to the awareness, and all else is then seen as an ego game, a distraction from the real work. Where is this coming from? Well, if we look at, let's say, modern non-duality teachers, then we can see that they are mostly influenced by some very important teachers from the past century in India, namely mostly Ramana Maharishi and Nisargadatta Maharaj. And if you look at those teachings which are widely available, then, very clearly there, whatever question is being asked, Ramana, for example, he will always first and foremost bring you back to the self, point out the illusion, and bring you out of your delusion of trying to change something to the essence. And if you can reach that essence, then okay, nothing needs to be changed actually. And the same with Nisargadatta Maharaj. Sometimes I think quite hard for people when he speaks, but okay, he speaks truth for sure. And he is always bringing people back to that essence. But we have to see what these teachers were trying to do and where they were bringing this message. At that time in India, people, of course, they had a basic understanding of the self, but they were also very much involved with working with the energy. And then Ramana, Nisargadatta, and so on must have taught that they are really too much involved with working with the energy. If you go into India, you see the bells, you see the chanting, you see the temples, you see the flowers, you see the asana, you see all kinds of things. And then, for sure, people there tend to forget the essence, and get lost in all these, you can say, energetic practices. But so then we have our modern non-duality teachers who bring this same message, I would say maybe even with more enthusiasm, in a society where there is no practice. And there is very little knowledge about practice. Very few people know how to breathe. Very few people have a good idea about what food is doing to their feeling and to their ability to reconnect to the self and to be peaceful and to be blissful and so on. People these days now, they are involved more and more. Now this is a growing thing, which is very good. Involved more and more in yogic practices, asana, pranayam, these things, chanting mantra, these things. But then when they get into non-duality, they feel, I have to drop all that. No, please, that is really not the idea. And even if you look at Ramana, for example, and you look a little bit more into the detail of what he is saying, there he will also point to certain energetic practices, and especially then when people come and say, Ramana, your vichara, your self-study and self-awareness, I have tried to sit and not think, but I just can't. Thoughts keep coming, and I can't find that peace, I can't find that bliss. Then Ramana will say, maybe you have to do a little bit more breathing. Focus on your breath and calm your breath, and maybe then it will work. And then when people come back and say, I've tried, I've done the breathing and I've tried, but it doesn't work, they maybe say, maybe something is bothering you from a little more deep inside. Maybe first you try some mantra, and then you try focusing on the self and not thinking. And when then people come back and say, I've tried that also now, but it still doesn't work, then, and that's very funny actually, then he says, maybe you need a holiday. So very clearly there, he knows people in India, they know these things. So he doesn't really have to say that, but if people then really say, oh, it doesn't work for me, this pure focus only on pure beingness, on the self, then he'll also point them towards those things in their energy that they might change to simply make it more easy. You know? I must say, for me, this whole discussion was a little bit strange because, well, for almost 20 years now, I was so much focused on Harish Johari, and with him, there had never been any kind of opposition between working with consciousness or working with energy. That had always seemed like one and the same thing. Quite simply, we focus our awareness on the truth, and at the same time, we play with the energy. And so that makes it also easier to keep the truth inside, and also makes life, I would say, more rewarding. So this is an endless discussion, which I've called useless here, because it does not matter. If you can solve any unhappy feeling just by stopping your mind and going back to the awareness of your awareness, then okay, that's what you do, of course. But if you cannot, then that is also okay, because then you can work with the energy until again it becomes possible. It's really as simple as that, so it should not be any kind of discussion. These two parts of the story, these two ways to work with the truth, are entirely complementary. We do not have to choose. It is not one or the other. Both go together quite naturally. Many teachers, also Ramana very definitely, Papaji also, for example, who was a student of Ramana, whenever questions like that were asked, their answer was always, please behave naturally. If you are hungry, eat. If you are tired, sleep. If you feel you can help somebody, help somebody. Behave naturally. Behaving naturally means working with the energy, because that is the only thing which you actually can do with nature. No? Nature has this tendency, whether we talk about nature outside of us or nature inside of us in terms of, our body and our whole system here. It has its ways, it has its fluctuations, it has its changes. And so, behaving naturally means that we maybe a little bit counterbalance any imbalance that comes, and, in that way make it so much easier to stay with the truth, to stay with the self. So, it's all a matter of attachment. Of course, let's say if you start working with your food, because you understand that this is something which affects your energy and affects your feeling, then this can become a huge frustration also, because it's not so easy. It's something you have to learn, and bit by bit you learn it. But so in that process, you might become frustrated because you are attaching to it. And so whenever in that process, whenever we work with the energy, when we start having some expectation, when we start attaching to the feeling that we want to generate, then we create a problem. That is the only thing that we have to avoid. But that does not mean we cannot work with the energy. And so, as I said before, the keys to working with our energy are found within the self itself. They are the seeds of the universe, but from which also all the yogic and tantric practices for working with the energy originate. And so, if we want that feeling of the self, if we want that non-duality not to be something which just occasionally comes when we are having a good moment or hearing a good talker talk about it, when we want it to be more enduring, then that is where we have to look. Purnamada Purnamidam